this morning on the show, they had Jeremy Fowler, who used to cover the Browns. Now he's with ESPN, and he talked about Jadeveon Clowney. Tell me what he said.
Well, basically, he said that they're interested. I was surprised how interested they would be because it was rumored there's a possibility of a 3-year deal. I really didn't agree with the possibility of a 3-year deal. I think that has Dwayne Bowe and all the other bad signings, the Kenny Britt stuff. I think that has it all written on there. I think that you got to be careful about that because last year it wasn't talent. They have talent to make the playoffs. They're a playoff team as far as on paper is concerned. Their problem is character. And there's a lot of people I follow in Houston that covered those football teams when he was with the Houston Texans, and he certainly picked it up by the end of his career there in Houston. But it was always a question of how hurt was he going to be, what his attitude was going to be. J.J. Watt was a strong leader that was able to keep him in line. Then he goes to Seattle, which is a great culture there that's able to keep him going. I feel that it could be a difficult situation. If it were a 1-year contract, I think that's a way to keep everybody on the up and up. Say they wanted to offer him something ridiculous, like 1 year, $20+ million. I know his price has dropped, but if they were to offer him something like that, I think that would be fine. That'd be perfectly fine. You could have a guy who's developed. You could try to bring him in as time goes on. Then it's up to Jadeveon Clowney to put together the results to keep his career going. That's who it's up to. And that's kind of what Jeremy had shared. But I think he is a little bit surprised, as of all of us. You know, Andrew Berry said a lot about being very aggressive, and we thought that was going to be kind of wordplay, kind of something to make us all feel better about things. He's been very aggressive, and he's been trying to address this defense the best they can. I think that last year, when they didn't have Myles Garrett for those final 6 games, it showed you just how thin that defense really is. It showed you how good Myles is, but it showed you just how thin that defense really is, and I think that that's something that they know they have to address. And I wouldn't be surprised. I know I'm putting carts before horses here answering this question, Les, but I wouldn't be surprised if they address that with the number 10 overall pick. Very high in this draft, depending on who's there at the offensive tackle spot. Because if they're going after Jadeveon Clowney, they know they have themselves a bit of a problem here. And I think that they're thinking differently about Olivier Vernon than what a lot of people, they feel the same way a lot of people do, but I think they feel a little bit differently than Olivier Vernon than we originally thought they did. I think that they definitely want to upgrade in that spot.
All right, 0 to 10, 10 being a slam dunk. Is Jadeveon Clowney a member of the Cleveland Browns this season?
Oh, I think it's like a 4 because they got to pay him a lot. I think he would take a bit of a discount to end up on a really good football team. Seattle's back in the mix, but I think that Tennessee's in the mix too, which is interesting. That's a great culture there, and they got a good defense and all that other stuff. I think that the Jets the Jets have to pay. The Browns we've heard, the Browns have to pay. There's a couple other teams that have kind of had some feelers here and there. I think those teams have to pay. So right now, I'd put it at a 4. And I think it will come down to years. And if it were anything, you might get me to budge on 2 years. But if it were anything more than that, I got to say no.
Let me ask you a strategic sports talk question having to do with sports talk shows. And you are as good as there is in this town. There's no question about that. When you talk about trades or signings or whatever, should money, in just talking, you and me, you and the guy at the end of the bar stool, you and the caller on line 3, what is the deal? Should money even be part of the conversation, or should just be if the guy's good enough, if it makes sense from a on-the-field standpoint? Is money part of what you should be talking about, or the fans should be talking about?
Usually no, because it's not my money, so I shouldn't really care. It's the same thing with the Indians and the Cavs. It's not my money. I really shouldn't care. It's about getting the player on the field because I either have the player or I don't have the player. I think in this case, though, with their history, sorry, I'm hitting the computer here. In this case, though, I think that it is germane to the conversation because I am afraid, in the same vein as Jamie Collins, that he would come here, and I think that we might see some walking around because the Browns, I'm sorry, they have a history of that. They have a history of signing guys to very rich deals and those guys not panning out for it. And there's been a couple of guys who have been a surprise. Jarvis Landry's been great for this football team. So that was always a question of money. Jarvis has been phenomenal for him. But in a lot of other cases, I just mentioned Jamie, I mentioned Kenny Britt, I mentioned Dwayne Bowe. These were horrific signings for them that put them in a bad spot. Not with the cap, but just put them in a bad spot. It made them look made them look like the type of mess that they had been in the past, where really they were trying to get an honest day's work out of players and they just couldn't do it.
All right, so if you sign these guys, and they've signed several of them for one-year contracts, so what you're doing is hoping they're going to play well to get that next contract if there is one left. But it seems to me if they're in a position to offer the 1 year, that means that guy wasn't valued by too many other teams. If all you're left with is a guy with the potential of a 1 year deal, there must be something in the mix there that is not quite right.
Well, that's why I'm a little bit worried about their defense anyway, because they've got some guys who are on 1 year kind of prove-it deals, and guys who are long in the tooth. Andrew Sadejo's 32 years old. This might be his last season in professional football coming up. So what they're doing is they're trying to put a Band-Aid on certain things. I think Andrew knows, and a lot of fans should know, that they can't address everything this offseason. They just don't have the wherewithal. They don't have the picks. And it's impossible to do that. It's really impossible for any team to do. You look in their own division. And this is something Jeremy pointed out earlier today, too. You see the Steelers, it's taken 6 seasons for the Steelers to build that defense the way they wanted that defense. And really, it was 5. They wanted to compete and compete big time last year until Ben Roethlisberger got hurt. Then that changed their entire plan on things. But it has taken them 5 years to build that defense the way they wanted to build it. For the Browns, I think you're about halfway there. You have Miles, who's really good. You have Denzel, who has tons of potential, but he's hurt a lot. Without Miles, it showed that you left Larry Ogunjobi out there on an island. You got some talent with Mac Wilson. I'm not sure about Sione Takitaki. I have hopes for him, but I think he's kind of a middler. We'll see. And then there's Greedy Williams. We don't talk about him much. So I think they're about halfway there, but it's going to take another 2 or 3 drafts, plus making sure that some of these guys are paid, rotating, get a little bit lucky before they do that. And Andrew knows that. That's why I think some guys have been paid with 1 year deals. And those guys can prove it, and you keep everybody honest. You keep the Browns honest because it's guaranteed, and you keep the player honest because you know that he's not going to walk around because he's still trying to keep his career going.